this video, I'm going to share with you my journey buying 4 properties before the age of 30, the nightmare tenants I had to deal with, why I bought each property, what was my investment strategy, and if you stick around to the end, I'm going to be talking about a little bit about what I want to be purchasing next. Now, let's start at the very beginning. I started wanting to buy properties because obviously you think that that's the way you're going to get rich. And in 2017, I decided I wanted to become a real estate agent after working at the bank for 3 years because I saw that honestly at the bank there was very limited ability to grow up, and like even when I tried to get a promotion, they kind of dropped the ball and said that, hey, you know what, you're just too young to get another promotion, because I already had gotten 2 or 3 in that same year, right? So I saw very quickly that it was extremely political at the bank level, and corporate America or corporate Canada wasn't really the right thing for me. So I decided I wanted to get into real estate. Now I had a little bit of money saved up, probably like 40-50 grand. I'd say about actually maybe 30 grand saved up, and I was just getting into this business. I was like, hey, you know what, like 30 grand will start me off in the business. And right off the bat, my family decided they wanted to buy a property. So I obviously said, hey, you know what, I want to purchase a property with them, and I wanted to put some money into it. I think I put around 50 grand into it, which means I took a line of credit against an unsecured line of credit. I actually had some line of credits because I worked at the bank, and I understood that, hey, you know what, I need debt, especially when I can get it and qualify for it. It's a good idea to have it. So ended up putting money down on that property with the family, and it was cool. It was a place in White Rock, if you know where that is, and it was like very close to the beach. That being said, it was a very old house. We were going to tear it down. We were going to build a house on that lot. So basically, fast forward, we got some tenants in there. They left. Then we got more tenants, and essentially these tenants ruined the place. They trashed it. They left dog crap everywhere. They basically like left it like that and didn't pay the rent and just disappeared. So there I was left trying to figure this out. How do I deal with this? How do I get money? Obviously, tenants have way too many rights in this country, so I was kind of SOL. So basically, we ended up selling that property. We sold it actually for a little bit of a loss, which actually taught me a lot, because after that, property values went up insane amounts, and we could have made 100, 200, $300,000 on that property. So what the first property basically taught me was the fact that one, also buying properties with a lot of people makes the profit margins very small, and thus making the work more than it actually is, especially if the work isn't divided amongst people equally. And that's really hard when people have different types of jobs. Like, you really can't divide work as equally when different type of jobs are involved. Now, that was the first thing it taught me. Second was it taught me how to get proper tenants, because honestly that wasn't an issue that I really thought about before. So it really taught me that. Now, moving on, the next property I bought was actually a pre-sale, so a pre-construction home, and it was a property that we bought at a pretty decent price. I think we bought it at like 465 or 469 or something like that. And essentially it was in this community of a bunch of other units, but they had a pool, they had a hot tub, they had a gym, they have a basketball court. We still actually own the property, and it's pretty cool because what this property taught me was the fact that if you buy from a good builder, and this builder was like a pretty renowned builder in our area, it's called Polygon Homes. They basically produce some really good products. So this building actually, despite the high strata fee, HOA fees if you're in the States, but despite the high strata fee, it's a property that actually provides some pretty good cash flow, especially at that price that we purchased it at. It's rented at 2,500, I think 2,550 maybe. And the cool thing with this one, the thing that I learned about this property, is to get properties that you actually like using the amenities. Because honestly, if you want to use the amenities, we use the pool all the time. Pool, hot tub, and this is the best thing, like especially if you're going to be living in the property, you want to be able to use those amenities. You want to be able to enjoy those amenities while still thinking of it as an investment. Now, this property is great. I think I'll probably keep it for a really long time. It's providing good cash flow. It's by a good builder. Strata fees are a little bit higher, but it is what it is. We get the amenities. And then fast forward was the third property. So this property was basically a investment property, and it was a property a little bit, probably 4 hours away from where I actually live. But it was a property that was going to be, I was able to build townhouses on it. So it was I wanted to get into the developer game, and I wanted to really get my feet wet and actually doing something a little bit larger. So by myself, I decided that this property was going to be a good investment, and it was. But I'll tell you a little bit more about it. I mean, basically, it was a house, and there was plans to build, I think, like 8 or 10 townhouses or something like that, and it was about I think it was a 1.4 or something like that million. And basically, I ended up purchasing it. Had a really weird feeling at the end of it, and honestly, the builder that I was working with at the time, they told me certain numbers before I bought the property, and then after I closed on it, after I gave the deposit and removed subjects, they told me a bunch of different numbers. They just said building costs has changed, so they kind of duped me in that sense. And that's one thing that I learned from that property as well, is like, don't trust builders and don't trust other people giving you numbers. Go find out numbers from 3, 4, 5 different people, just because at the end of the day, like, it's your ass that's going to be on the line. So that was like a huge lesson for me as well. So basically, we I bought that property, and I had a weird feeling about it a couple months later. And before the market started to dip out, I basically posted on a couple groups. I'm a realtor myself, so I was like, you know what, let me just market this quickly and see if I can flip this for a quick buck. Ended up flipping the property to another agent, and essentially made a little bit of money, not any money that was really like noteworthy. I think it was like 30, 40, 50 grand, something like that. But that ended up in a whole different ordeal where, like, the tenants didn't leave, and then the other agent sued, I sued, a bunch of legality things that basically took the profit to essentially nothing. And I realized that, hey, you know what, like, maybe that game isn't the right game for me. So while that was happening, I then purchased my fourth property, which was again a pre-sale. We did pretty well in the first pre-sale, so I was like, you know what, maybe the pre-sale is the way to go. So essentially purchased the pre-sale, and that's actually the building that I'm sitting in right now, and we haven't rented it out, so we're just basically going to be using it as office space for a little bit, until it rents out, because there's so much competition. It's in a high-rise building, and this property, we purchased it at what we thought at the time it was a good price, and this building was selling out like crazy, so we ended up purchasing it. It was actually a pretty funny story, because me and my partner Alvin were just kind of in our office, and I had locked this property down for another client of mine, but last minute he backed out, and I turned to Alvin. I actually turned to somebody else to say, hey, do you want to purchase this with me? They said no. Turned to Alvin in my office, and he was like, yeah, let's purchase it. It's like, it was, I think, 35 grand down each at the time. Then we had to come up with another 35 grand down in when it closed, which was now. And essentially we purchased it together, and basically completion happened like 6 months earlier, which was kind of took us back, because one, obviously the market is where it is right now and things are not selling like crazy, but two, we didn't have any financing prepared. So ended up figuring it out, ended up just essentially making it work with the lenders and the banks and the other people in charge. We ended up closing on this property. Now this property, it's in a pretty decent high rise. It's the first high rise actually in Langley, which is cool in our area. But essentially, I think this one's going to be one that you keep as well, and you just keep it rented out. You keep letting the renters pay the mortgage down, and essentially have all these properties that are just paid off. Now, that being said, after this property, I do want to potentially purchase one more here in BC, and then after that, the plan is to essentially go into the States and just start purchasing things there. Now, I'm probably thinking of purchasing in Texas, maybe Florida, maybe Arizona, but I think Texas is the best place right now to get some good cash flow. At the end of the day, like, none of these properties cash flowed massive amounts where I got like $1,000 every month back from the property, and that's kind of what I'm after. If I can get 500 to $1,000 each property over there, that's where I'm going to be dumping my money. I did find a couple of lenders, found a really cool dude. His name's Cameron, and he basically helps people, Canadians, and he's a Canadian as well, but he helps people purchase properties in USA. So I'm gonna be working with him. Hopefully that relationship turns out, and it's cool recording these videos now, because it's like you can go back and see if those relationships actually did pan out or not. But essentially, yeah, that's what the plan is now going forward. Maybe purchase one more here, and then move out to the States and start purchasing properties out there. Now, that being said, like, what I learned from this one here is, before I go into that, but what I learned from this one here, sometimes timing beginning doesn't work out exactly the way it's supposed to be, but you can always figure it out. There's always ways to figure it out. Even if I did need to go to B lending, like there is B lending. We didn't have to go that route, thankfully, but there is ways to figure it out. So if you put yourself in these positions to purchase these properties, one way or another, your ass is going to figure it out, because otherwise you're essentially going to lose a bunch of money. So yeah, that's what I learned from that property. Now, yeah, so basically, like, buying these properties is cool because at the end of the day, like 20, 30 years down the road, we're entrepreneurs. At the end of the day, we don't have a retirement plan, we don't have a pension, none of that, right? So at the end of the day, like 10 years down the road, even if I purchased one property a year, which was the goal, but I think I'm going to try to increase that now. But even if I just did one property a year, over like 20 years, that's going to be like 20 properties. And if they each go up to like, well, and if they're in BC and they go up to like $1 million, $20 million just sitting there, live off that passive income, essentially that would be the way to go. But um, if we can get more every single year, that's the goal as well. Because again, at the end of the day, yeah, real entrepreneurship is good and it's fun for income, but if you're not putting your income in places that actually make more income and guarantee a future for yourself, I think you're kind of doing yourself a disservice. So a little bit of a different video. Hope you guys enjoyed, and let me know if you have any questions. Peace.